Let's take a look at some boundaries types of questions on the digital SAT and how we can go ahead and solve them. So for this problem here, we have generations of mystery and horror blank. Obviously, the word there is going to be writers. Have been influenced by the dark Gothic stories of celebrated American author Edgar Allan Poe. When we see this semicolon there, that's a period for the purposes of the digital SAT. So generations of mystery and horror writers, period. That doesn't make any sense. D is out. Then we have a dash. Normally when we see a dash on the digital SAT, it's either surrounding a non-essential clause or it's treated like a colon, which means everything prior to the dash should be a standalone sentence on its own. Again, generations of mystery and horror writers is not a complete sentence on its own. So for that reason, it's out. Then we have A and B. If we go to B, generations of mystery and horror writers have been influenced by the dark Gothic stories of celebrated American author Edgar Allan Poe. A comma doesn't make sense there because we don't want to put a comma between our subject and its verb, which is the writers have. So for that reason, B is out, which leaves us with A, which means there is no punctuation needed to separate writers and have. So when we look at combining independent combined with another independent clause, there are three ways we can combine them on the digital SAT. There are periods and semicolons, there are colons and dashes, and then there are comma and then a coordinating conjunction such as any of the fanboys. So for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Those are the only three ways on the digital SAT that you'll be tested to see of combining two independent clauses. Now, if you see a period in one answer choice and a semicolon or a comma and in the answer choice, you can be sure that those are both viewed as periods for the digital SAT, which means both of them are wrong. If a period was the correct answer choice, then the semicolon could also be the correct answer choice. And the digital SAT will never give you two answer choices that could be the answer. They are very clear with which answer choice is correct and why the other three are incorrect. So that should stick out to you when you're going through these questions. You should be asking yourself, do I have a period and a semicolon or a period and a comma fanboy? Because those are essentially the same thing, so I can cross both of them out. Right? And now you're down to a 50-50 chance, which is where you want to be if you're not exactly sure where you're going with this question, because a 50-50 chance is a lot better than a 1 in 4 chance. Now, if you're combining an independent clause, which is just a standalone sentence, and a dependent clause, which is just a fragment, it can't stand on its own, there are a couple of ways you can combine those two pieces together. So we have a comma, a colon, and a dash. With the dash and the colon, everything preceding it needs to be its own standalone sentence or its own independent clause. If it is not, then a colon or a dash are not the right answer choice for that question. Now for a dash, like I was saying earlier, it can be at the ends of a non-essential clause, so that's a little different. But for the sake of combining an independent clause with a dependent clause, everything before the colon or dash has to be a complete sentence. Now everything after the colon or dash can be an explanation to the sentence prior to it, or in the case of a colon, it can be a list. So in this example, the NFL documentary covered many NFL teams. Cowboys, Giants, and 49ers were some of the teams on the video. For the comma, all we know here is it can set off lists, it can set off intro words, it can put between different adjectives. There are some things we don't want to use a comma with. We don't want to use it before a preposition. We don't want to use it between the adjective and the noun. We don't want to use it between an adjective modifying another adjective, and we don't want to use it between the subject and the verb, as we saw in the first example. But every other case should be just fine. It is generally true that the technological change is a linear process in which useful technologies are replaced by new and better, and then in the answer choice, each answer choice has ones, even so. So when we put ones there, that is a complete sentence. Everything before that is an independent clause. After the blank, the reawakening of interest in the steam engine reminds us that the ostensibly obsolete technologies may be brought back into service to address society's changing needs. That also is an independent clause. So what I'm looking at here are two independent clauses. So when I go through these answer choices, if I see this even so in the first example here, one's even so, that supplementary phrase doesn't make sense to put at the end of the first independent clause. So for that reason, it's out. For B, one's even so, comma. Well, we have two independent clauses. We cannot combine them together with just a comma alone. So for that reason, B is out. C, so after ones, we see a semicolon there, which means we can treat that just like a period. And then we have even so, comma, the reawakening of interest in the steam engine, so on and so forth. That makes complete and total sense. The even so comma is a comma that is separating the introductory phase to the rest of the independent clause. So C looks to be good. And then D, ones, even so, those two commas there cannot be used to combine two independent clauses. So again, D is out. C is our answer choice. So in our last question, it says, in discussing Mary Shelley's 1818 epistolary novel Frankenstein, literary theorist Gayatri Spivak directs the reader's attention to the character of Margaret Saville. As Spivak points out, Saville is not the protagonist of Shelley's blank, so novel, as the recipient of the letters that frame the book's narratives. She's the occasion of it. As Spivak points out, Saville is not the protagonist of Shelley's novel. So that would be a complete sentence. That is a complete thought. It's an independent clause. So we can put a bracket around there. Then we have, as the recipient of the letters that frame the book's narrative, she's the occasion of it. That is also a complete sentence, an independent clause by itself. So now we know that we have two independent clauses that we are combining together. So for A, we need some form of punctuation, so not having anything is not going to do it. For B, we just have a comma, and we can't combine two independent clauses with just a comma. So for that reason, B is out. C, we have novel, semicolon, which is just like a period, and then we have rather, comma, as the recipient of the letters and yada, yada, yada. That makes complete and total sense. The comma is setting off the introductory phrase, and then it goes into the independent clause. So C looks like it could work. Then we have D, novel, comma, rather, comma. Again, that's going to create a comma splice. We need to have two independent clauses separated by either a period, a semicolon, or a comma and a fanboy, coordinating conjunction. And D does none of those things, so D is out. So C is the correct answer. Those are just 3 examples of boundaries questions that you will see on the digital SAT. Again, the best way to get good at these, the best way to start recognizing patterns and get comfortable with these types of questions is to do more practice problems. Take more practice exams. Start to notice what you're missing and why you're missing it. If you need any help, make sure you reach out to me at TestPrepLaunch.com and I'll make sure to get back to you. I'll see you in the next video.